Right.
Welcome everyone to another talk. This one is all on habits, and it's a really important one and one I'm very passionate about, because instead of just taking your life from improving it, you're able to optimize it and take yourself to another level. To start off with, I'm going to talk about a brilliant story by the British cycling team. From 1908 to 2003, the English had won a single gold medal and not a single Tour de France. We were doing atrociously. And so in 2004, they decided to hire someone to improve that and change their track record. They hired Dave Brailsford. He had a quote about improving your team, your abilities by lots of little marginal gains. And so he did. He started doing tiny modifications, like finding the most effective gel for massages. He made sure all the cyclists wore thermal insulating trousers that were able to keep their muscles at an optimum temperature. He would make sure the outdoor cyclists wore indoor uniforms so they were more aerodynamic. He would even go as far to paint the inside of their truck white so you could see all little specks of dust. This may seem absurd, but all of these tiny changes added up so much that from 2008 to 2017, the British won 178 gold medals, championships, 66 gold medals, and 5 Tour de France's, which was one of the greatest achievements in not only British history, but certainly cycling history, and has led the British cycling team to be one of our greatest teams. Now, I'm telling you this story to emphasise that it's not these great big actions that make enormous differences. It's all the little 1% improvements that add up over time. They're what truly make a difference. And if you look at it on a graph, if you got 1% better every day for a year, instead of being a straight line, you would go up like that. And you would end up at 37% better. However, if you got 1% worse, you would go all the way to almost zero. It's an enormous difference, and it's just from those little 1% every day. And that's what mastering your habits is about. It's about mastering those 1%. You'll also notice that initially there doesn't seem to be much improvement. And this is where a lot of people go wrong in habits. They think that because you're not having a lot of improvement initially, it's not working, it's not successful. You're not improving your ability to learn information. You're not improving your health, your fitness. You're not improving your smoking addiction. That's actually a hallmark of habit success. That shows that they will improve over time because your work isn't being wasted, it's being stored. And that's what's really important. As well, your habits are a lagging measure of your future outcomes. What you repeat now and you do consistently now is where you'll end up in the future. You're able to control where you're going to be in the future by what you do now. So don't judge your life based on your current results. Judge it based on your current habits, because that's what's going to lead you to where you go in the future. One coin wouldn't make you rich. If I gave you 10 coins, you still wouldn't say you're rich. 100, 1,000, no. But at one point, there will be a coin that makes you consider yourself rich. And it's the same thing with habits. That's the beauty of habits. It's not one habit that's going to drastically improve and change your life. It's not 10. But at some point, your habits will have improved your life. So have faith in them, because they will pay out. They will make a difference. With the same habits, you will end up with the same results. With different optimized habits, you can end up achieving anything you want. And that's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a simple 4 steps that will help you take complete control of your habits and complete control of your current trajectory, so you can control where you're going to go in life. I've written it out here. These are the 4 labels, CCRR, for your habits. The way a habit works is Your conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time. It's a bottleneck. You cannot focus on more. That's why our body has evolved to have habits. Our mind has habits such that we can automate processes. Say you're thinking about your job and you want to change jobs or you want to improve your application. You're walking around your house, you're thinking about it, you're thinking about that. You walk into a dark room and you suddenly have to think, oh, I need to turn the lights on, turn the light switch on, and then you have to figure out your train of thought. That's a simple example, but it's why we have habits. It's a complete waste of our time, and we need to just walk into the dark room, automatically put the lights on, and carry on. That's what habits are there for. And they're so important that studies estimate between 40 and 60% of our actions are habitual. So by controlling those habits, you're going to control 40 to 60% of your life. It's enormous. They work in a simple way. Start off with, we have a cue. Second, we have a craving. Third, a response. And fourth, a reward. Let me explain these. A cue. Let's take the example of going into that dark room. The cue is walking into the dark room. It happens subconsciously, but you will notice it's dark. The next is the craving. You don't want to be in a dark room, so you automatically have a desire for light. The response is you turning on the light switch, and the reward is the pleasure of being in a light room. Another example. Your phone rings, okay? The cue is the buzz of a notification. The craving is your desire to know what the notification is. Your response is picking up the phone, looking at it, and the reward is whatever the message is. Someone's liked your post, sent you a positive message, etc. Every habit you perform will go through these 4 steps. Cue, craving, response, reward. Cue, craving, response, reward. It's constantly happening, completely subconsciously, and it is dictating that 40 to 60% of your life, which is dictating your trajectories in the future. So learning to master every one of those is going to help you master your life. Sorry, I have mixed up my sheets. Okay, I will start off with cue. To focus, I'm going to start with making good habits, because breaking bad habits is really easy. So to start off with focusing on the cue, it's all about making it obvious. I'm going to get different colours, sorry. So this is all about making it obvious. If you can see it and it's obvious, the cue is going to be a lot easier. You're going to be able to control your habits. And the best way to do this is with an implementation intention. So in 2003, British researchers wanted to optimise the amount of exercise people did. So they split people into 3 groups. The first group were just told, exercise once a week. The second group were told, exercise once a week, and we'll also show you a motivational video on exercise. The third group was told, write out an intention for when you're going to exercise. So they would say, I will exercise for 30 minutes at 7 a.m. on Wednesday every week in my kitchen. And it was fixed in detail. It gave it almost an obvious cue. And as a result, they exercised twice as much as the other 2 groups. And in fact, there was little difference between the other 2 groups. That's how powerful it was. And the implementation is saying something like, I will behavior at time at location. By saying that in such a specific way, you're able to focus someone. You're able to focus your attention such that when it occurs, it's a lot more obvious. When it's obvious, you're triggering that habit. It's essential to start your habit. Without your cue, your habit's never going to start. And that is one of the biggest ways, is having that implementation. If you want to start a habit of studying every day, say you're going to study at 8 a.m. in the library. If you want a habit of exercising, you are going to exercise at 4 p.m. in the gym. Any habit, you apply that rule, you can start fixing it. Use a reminder on your phone. That will improve your cue. It will make sure you won't forget. It helps it become consistent. The next tactic for a cue is what's called habit stacking. You already have habits now. It might be waking up, it might be brushing your teeth, it might be making lunch or making a coffee. You already have these habits implemented into your life. The cue is already there. It's already been developed and strengthened. So what habit stacking is taking that original cue and adding your new habit on top of it. So if you want to be more grateful, you say, after I have my morning coffee, which is already a habit, I'm going to say something I'm grateful for. After I sit down for dinner, I'm going to say something I'm grateful for. You're stacking those habits on top of each other. And that's the next one, is habit stacking. I'll just write stacking. The next way you can control your cues is through your environment. As I said, your cue is something you see. It's going into that dark room. It's hearing your notification ring. It's an environmental factor. And a classic example that a lot of us have felt is you're upstairs in your room, you're feeling normal, you're just watching a video, studying. You go downstairs to see a family member or a friend. They're in the kitchen. You wander into the kitchen and all of a sudden you feel hungry. It's completely subconscious. But the moment you've walked into that kitchen, that's an environment where you associate the cupboard with your favourite snacks and treats. You associate the fridge with some meat and protein that you want to nourish on. There are so many cues in the kitchen, completely subconscious, that you associate with food and hunger, that all of a sudden you subconsciously become hungry. Your environment completely dictates your cues. If you control your environment, you control your cues, which control your habits, which control your life. And it's really essential to building an environment that will help you take control of your cues. That's the next one. These are the 3 primary tactics for controlling your cues, for making it obvious. I'll get on how to break bad habits right at the end, but that's how to master your cues. That's how you make sure a habit starts. Next, you have tons of cues a day, but this don't always trigger habits. You've got to control your cravings, your desire. You must want to do a habit. There are a few different little tactics, but I'm going to touch on a really important one, and that's the social life around us. There's a really good story of a man called, a Polish man, Mr. Polga. He was a bit of an unusual man, and he was sending loads of letters to a school teacher saying, I've got this great idea. I'm thinking, I so strongly believe that we can take any human being and by controlling their environment, making them really focused on a specific task and educated from a young age, they can become a master and an expert. And so he said to this teacher, who he didn't really know, will you have children with me so I can test this? And crazily enough, she did agree, and they had 3 daughters. They chose, what's a great academic test? Chess. So they filled their house, cluttered it with chess, with posters of the greatest chess players at the time, hundreds of books about chess. They told the children from the moment they were born, chess is the best thing. You guys are going to be the greatest chess players ever. And well, he was right, and that's the extraordinary thing. The youngest, by 5 years old, was beating her father. The second youngest was, by 12, the youngest ever listed among top 500 players. Oh, apologies, no, I got that wrong. The youngest was 4.5 years old, at 4.5 years old, was defeating adults. The middle child was better than her. And by 14, she was a world champion and a grandmaster a few years later. The youngest was the one that beat her father at 5 years old. At 12 was the youngest player to be listed under the top 100. And at 15 years and 4 months, the youngest grandmaster of all time. And then she proceeded to be... Pardon?
And the oldest.
The oldest, well, I don't know what happened, but she wasn't as good. But the youngest was then the top one for 27 years. So she really was able to succeed her father's vision. And what this shows us is that our environment, the people around us shape us, for us what's important. They shape our values. And so they make us aware of what's desirable. And that's what brings us back to craving. This is why I'm telling you this. It's because it helps you understand and appreciate how important those around us are to what we find desirable. You may have that cue, but if you don't really want it, if you don't value being fit and well exercised, or you don't value getting high grades, you're never really going to have a deep down desire. And you may think, oh, but I do want to be more fit, or I do want to study more. I can't just completely change my social life. And you don't need to. But build a group of friends, find new people who are interested in the same behaviours that you are. And maybe you have some commonalities. If you're quirky and like, I don't know, something quite niche like board games, but you still want to get out and exercise, find a group that combines those. So then you still feel part of your group while exploring new groups. And that's the best way. Apology, I didn't write here. You've got to make this attractive. You've got to find a way to make your outcome attractive. There are other ways, but this is the big one. It's controlling the social side of your life. Up next, response. You've actually got to perform and do the action. This means it's simple. It's got to be easy. If it's not easy, you're not going to do it. If I wanted you to build a habit of running a marathon every day, you're never going to get started. If that were your goal, were to run a marathon every day, and you started off saying, I'm going to run a marathon every day, you would give up after a week. It's too hard to keep something like that up. You may be driven and desire that, but initially you're not going to be able to. And there's a great example is that in human evolution, we spread from Asia across to Europe, across that band, which is the same latitude, I think it might be longitude, but it's the same band, which means it's the same weather conditions, the same temperature, the same global cycles across the year. And it's a lot easier to spread our cultures and crops across that band. And so the people across that Asia-Europe band spread 3 times faster than across the Americas, which would be having to change their crops, their food, their ecosystems. And this isn't because people born in Europe or Asia were smarter, it's just because we are wired to be lazy. So these humans are able to just quite easily spread across because we're wired to be lazy, whereas otherwise it was quite hard. Now this isn't to say we can't do amazing feats and push ourselves, but we are evolved and designed to preserve our energy and to conserve it because it is so essential. And so as we're lazy, although we can do great feats at any given day, we want to lean into that laziness. And for the majority of these habits we're trying to build, we want to make it easy. So if you do want to run a marathon every day, an extraordinary feat, you want to start it off easy. And I don't mean run 5k a day, I don't mean run for 10 minutes a day, I don't even mean run for 2 minutes a day. Do the simple thing of putting on your shoes. That habit will take so little time and be so easy to start that your habit will form very easily. You'll be able to walk through these steps really quickly. And that means your habit can start building. And that's not where you stay. You don't spend the rest of your life putting on your shoes every day at 6 p.m. in your hallway. No, you go beyond that, well beyond that. But you start building your habit from where it is easy. You start making it an easy response, and that's where you build up from. We are wired to preserve energy, and as I said, people can do great feats. But there are all days where we have hard days, and so to making it easy means there's always something we can fall back and keep that habit up. From there you can build up to a great habit of running a marathon day. But if you want to focus on it being easy, that's where you need to start. There's a good analogy for this easy one. Imagine a garden hose with a bend in it. There are two ways you can get water to go faster. The first is you can push water through harder. And that's like trying to drive your motivation really high and hard. The second is you just take out the knot. And that's just making the habit easy in the first place. Next up, to control your reward, you make it satisfying. These first three make a behaviour occur. If you don't have the cue, you're never going to notice it. If you don't have the desire to do it, you're never going to do it. If it's too hard to do, you're never going to be able to do it. If it's not rewarding enough, you won't repeat the behaviour. You won't have a reason to do it in the future. We are all hardwired such that we do what is rewarding for us and beneficial. We need to focus on our rewards such that we do repeat them again. Chewing gum, as an example, had been sold throughout the 1800s without much success. However, it was in 1891 when Wrigley decided to sell it with added peppermint or spearmint flavour and fruit flavourings that it suddenly didn't just become a chewy, flavourless substance. It became rewarding and enjoying, and that's when it set off and it became a boom of an addictive substance. That was the major difference that changed chewing gum. And equally, we as humans aren't evolved. We've never needed to delay reward. It can be very rewarding, I assume, building a multi-millionaire business, that is so delayed you can't focus your life now on that reward. We're not evolved for it. In evolution, we would need to know whether our water was around or not, whether a berry was poisonous or whether we ran away from the tiger fast enough. And if we got it all wrong, we'd know pretty quickly. And so it was. Susie, could I get your water? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. And it was all very important to know straight away. And it's the same with our rewards now. With our habits, you may be building a habit to be better looking, but it won't pay off for weeks, months, maybe even years. That's a hallmark of good habits. It won't pay off. And so it's really important that you make a reward satisfying now. So for example, there are a few different techniques, but you can go with a friend, make it more enjoyable and satisfying to that victory of working out with a friend. You can do a tick off a habit tracker, put paper clips in a jar. Anything that gives you a slight bit of satisfaction and gratification now will help you keep and sustain that habit. It will make you want to keep doing it. As well, if you choose a habit that's easy, you're more likely to achieve it, and that achievement in and of itself will be a victory. They are the main components about building a good habit. You have a complete framework on how to build any new habit. It always follows those 4 steps. So now, let's figure out how to break a bad habit. If it's obvious, if you want it obvious to be good, make it invisible to get rid of a bad habit. invert it. Instead of making your environment prime those cues and behaviours, instead of having your phone with you next to you study, make it invisible. Hide your phone behind your laptop. Put it in your bag, in a hat. Hide it in another room. Making it invisible means you're not going to see it in the first place. Next up, attractive. Simply make it unattractive. Instead of your social world environment desiring it, make it undesirable. Imagine there's some sort of punishment behind your behaviour. Say you smoke a cigarette, do 10 push-ups. That kind of idea. Make it unattractive to complete. Instead of easy, make it hard. If you want to if you want to eat less food, instead of having your snacks out on a bowl in front of you, put apples in the bowl such that you're boosting a good reward, making that obvious, a large part of your environment, and take those bad sweets and hide them in a cupboard in a locked box, and hide the key in another room. So when you think, oh, I kind of want a snack, you have to go to the other room, get the key, go to the box, unlock the box, open the cupboard, etc. It just becomes too much effort. You don't want to do it. It's hard. That's how you break a bad habit. Instead of satisfying, make it unsatisfying. This one's a hard one to limit because our bad habits are there because they're naturally satisfying. So it is hard to remove that. The best way in general is an accountability partner. This relates to that social aspect. If you know someone is judging you in some way, not so much judging, but you feel like you're letting them down. You said, I'm going to eat less chocolate, and you do, and they have to know about it. You feel like you're letting them down. That makes it unsatisfying to do, and will help the habit be broken out quicker. And these are the 4 principles. This is how you build good habits, break bad ones. I'm going to leave you with a bonus because there's a lot more to habit making than just these, but I'm going to leave you with a bonus about identity. It often feels difficult to keep good habits going for more than a few days for a lot of us. With these, it will be a lot easier. But you're focusing on change in a very behavioural sense. So I'll give you a diagram to help visualise this. Most people try and target this ring when they change. This is focused on outcomes. This is focused on making a multi-million-pound business. This is focused on being very strong or having a very strong body. This is focused on outcomes, not being addicted to your phone. Attainment of things and goals and achievements. Next, we have behaviours. This is what everything I've been talking about and habits is about. This is how you behave. This is what you're doing in your life. This is going from having a multi-million-dollar business to actually just being someone who runs it, talking to your employees, improving it, working on it. That are the behaviours. The most inner level of change is identity. Identity. This is enormous because you go from changing these outcomes through these behaviours to changing who you are as a person. It's a really good example is instead of saying, no, I'm trying to quit smoking, someone's offering me a cigarette, no, I'm trying to quit smoking. Instead of saying I'm trying to quit smoking, you say, I'm not a smoker. You shifted it from an outcome you want through a behaviour, you shifted it to an identity. And that's groundbreaking to say, I'm not a smoker. It's almost no consideration that you would be refusing the cigarette. No one's going to try and push it against you. You're not going to try and even consider the cigarette. And it's also really important for building up these new habits. And it helps in that social sense as well. Instead of saying, I'm trying to run more, I'm trying to get fitter. Instead of saying, I am a runner, I'm fit. It may almost seem like fake it till you make it, but by having that identity, By considering yourself someone different, you want to enforce that. It does make your behaviour more attractive and satisfying to achieve and fulfill. You are focusing on who you are and the person you are rather than the outcomes you want and the behaviours. And that shift makes a massive difference. The goal isn't to read a book, but to become a reader. The goal isn't to run a marathon, but become a runner. Once you've run the marathon, if your goal was only ever to run a marathon, you'd just quit. But to be a runner as a person means you're going to keep going. You're sustaining your goals. You're able to push yourself further. There are a few different ways to change your identity. You can admit it to others. So start saying to someone, I'm a speaker. Start saying to someone, I'm a climber. I'm a musician. You putting that identity out there helps it a lot. It builds that social construct supporting you. As well, once you've repeated these enough times, you will start saying it naturally. You will be able to have that identity reinforced within you. There's a great quote. Every action you make is a vote for the type of person you want to be. In any vote, there are sides for and against, and it's the majority that wins. Make that majority the identity you want to have. That's pretty much it. This is a framework for not only understanding how habits work, how to master them, and how to change your identity such that they stick. This is an enormous framework for achieving your end goals in your life. Don't forget, this is the biggest principle to me, that what you are doing now, your current trajectory, where you're going, the current habits completely is able to dictate where you're going to go. So if you master your trajectory, you're going to master where you go. Don't be so obsessed on your current results. Become obsessed by your current trajectory, where you're going in the future, what your habits are doing now. Don't be focused on the fact that you've not got a first, you've not got any job or any work experience. Don't be focused on that. Be focused on the fact that right now you're going to training every day, you're studying every day, you're meeting up with friends every day, you're eating one more healthy vegetable every day. Focus on what the changes you are making are now, because they are where you're going to go in life. We all have days where we're going to fail. It's never going to be you as a person's fault. We are all capable of extraordinary feats, and we are all capable of everything. It's not you as a person that's at fault, it's your system. If any one of these isn't being attained correctly, it's going to make a habit hard or even impossible to achieve. If you fix all these perfectly, you'll be able to do any habit. It's never you that's the fault, it's the system. As well, I can't give you an example for everything. We'll do questions after where you can ask me about habits and I can apply these to your habits. But whenever you go through a life and you want to change something, ask yourself, how can I make it more obvious? How can I make it more attractive? How can I make it easier? How can I make it more satisfying? And the inverse if you want to break a habit. Work out those problems and you'll crack your habits. And to start, why not make a habit of coming to my talks? That's everything. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.